You want maximizing the potential of your songs. Because throughout my time of making music, I've consistently observed a phenomenon that used to just piss me off, but now it's something I work with instead of against. I call it the last 5% rule, which states that the last perceived 5% of work on a song is just as important as the first 95%. If not more important. Why? Because that last 5% is what takes the passable foundation of a song and turns it into what it was actually intended to be. Let me explain. When I say last perceived 5%, I mean the amount that's left to do when you think you're 95% done. Because more often than not, we greatly underestimate how much work that last 5% is. Let's map this visually. Here's where you think you're at. All the big important stuff is done, all the writing and the sound design. There's just a bit left. So you start polishing the mix of this section and then tweaking the next section to fit the new mix of the first one and then fixing the transition between them and then realizing, oh man, I gotta redo all of this. And then suddenly, your last 5% is more like 50. And that's the core of this principle. If you don't put in the effort to polish that last 5%, you won't get to the part where you uncover the problems holding your vision back. And accepting flaws that you know are in your control is an insult to the skill you built to know how to fix them. This whole thing is just about putting in effort to realize the full potential of your songs, because that last 5% can be the difference between a song that's pretty good and a song that's, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And now you may be wondering, can't this be interpreted through a more negative perfectionist lens that only does more harm than good? Yes. Which is why this video is longer than however long it is right now. You tell me. And so I present to you which will make more sense if I explain the opposite first. Regular perfectionism basically always has a negative connotation, because it comes from unrealistic expectations and usually self-doubt, a lack of confidence, and not internalizing your own skill. And in my head it usually looks like someone thinking, oh, why does my song not sound like Cohen's sound? Or it's so good, and it's like, yeah. Maybe because they're one of the best to ever do it and they've been doing it for decades and you just powered the FL Studio 3 months ago. But that does not mean that you couldn't get as good as Cohen's sound. And in fact, to get there, I'm almost certain that you'd have to adopt the philosophies of realistic perfectionism. This idea is based on mainly three things: understanding your own ability, being confident that you can push those abilities, and being blindly overconfident that you can make what you want to make happen given enough time. It's shifting your perspective from, I'll never be as good as I want to be, to, I know I can be as good as I want to be, I just have to keep working. This is where it ties back to the 5% rule, because this is exactly the mindset needed to fully realize that last bit of your song to its maximum potential, based on your skill level. But once again, it's also the mindset needed to get as good as you want, so that first part, still true. Just believe, just do stuff, just believe in yourself. You can do stuff. You can do stuff. So to help you on your journey, I'm going to show you a couple examples from whatever stuff, and then give you a couple of broader tips for you to think about as you do stuff in the future. Now this example is kind of an extreme one, but I think it illustrates the point very well because of how extreme it is. And the important thing is that, while it seems kind of insane now, it did not feel insane when I first did it. And then you're probably like, what are you talking about? This is a render of Mr. Krabs' remix from Fizz Volume 1, when I thought I was basically 95% done. The render is called Mr. Krabs No 5% because I've had this idea for years. And if you're familiar with the song, when I play this first section, you'll probably be like, confused. That's just a different drop. The actual one sounds like this. Because that first one used to be pretty final. That used to be like, man, okay, this drop is done. This is how this drop's gonna be. But then down the road, I realized, I don't think this serves the function of the song well enough. I think it needs to be a little tighter, a little better, a little more, a lot of things. And then I ended up redoing it mostly, using the same sounds to make new sounds, and some of the sounds stayed the same. But and there's also other details like this. Well, that one didn't even have the fill. And then you keep listening to stuff like this. And it's it's like, okay, yeah, those sounds are there and those sounds are cool, but but compared to the actual one, the chord sound is way more in your face, and the guitar sound that comes in is completely eaten up. But I thought this was good before. This was like good before, but it had to get fixed later on. And then the next section happened. It's pretty normal, except these last 2 bars aren't there. And the old one, it just goes like this. And then you're probably like, what? There's just a whole section here that was canceled. Actually, it wasn't canceled. It was It was like, we took the chords from the canceled section and then wrote the new section. Because before it used to be, you know, the chords were there and the rhythms were there, and it ended up being a crap ton different. And then it's like, okay, well, the writing after that stays the same, but it sounds like this. Which, you know, that is the section, but in the actual song it sounds like this. Way less big, you know, a lot more muffled. And then probably one of the most important examples for most people watching this video is this drop. Because before it used to sound like this. And, you know, all the sounds are there, all of the drums are done, everything there is basically, like, all the elements are done. But that, compared to this, is... And it's like, that is the difference that the last 5% can make. And you may say, well, clearly this is more than 5%. And to you I say, did you watch the first part of the video? Do you remember? The whole point is that I thought it was the last 5%. It ended up being like 50% in this example. I thought I was 95% done. I was only 50% done because I went and I cared and fixed things because I knew I could make them all better. And I just kept fixing the things that I knew could be better, because why wouldn't I? I want this to be as best as I can. And you should want your stuff to be as best as you can. And you should, wait! I forgot about one thing. There was another canceled section at the end. That used to end... There was like a whole thing. There was like 77, 67, 47 versions of that end thing that just completely just got scrapped. And by the way, if you want to see all of those versions of everything and just a bunch, all of the outtakes for this song specifically, there is a metric F ton of them. All of those are on the Patreon in a nice little video. Now we're actually in the final project for that song, which will serve as a good example as to even when you do like the whole last 5% thing, there's usually even more, because as you can see, I'm sure there's all these renders at the top, and these are the renders of each of the individual projects that each of the sections in the song exist in. And each of these renders, like each one of these sections, these project renders, has been painstakingly crafted within the context of all the other ones. Like basically all of the last 5% work has already been done in all of these renders. And there's like, 3 or 4 renders per each thing, which, if you produce, you probably know that's not that much. But the truth be told about me is I don't render that much. I only render when I truly think it could be the last thing in terms of like final render. I render stuff just for, to show people or for funsies. But in terms of these renders, I only render them when I think this could be it. Either that or I render a not done version so I can put it in one of the other projects so I can tweak the project I'm putting it into. But whatever. Point being, all of this stuff is basically last 5%ed. But there is still in this project this big old transition, which sounds like this. Let's hear it in context, just if you care. Still very sharp, but it's intended to be sharp. So like it's without it, it just does not work. If you take it and you turn off If you delete all this stuff, it just does not work. And like you could get away with that, or maybe just putting one sweep or so, but it just wouldn't be. It just wouldn't feel as good. So that's like another, you know, a 0.0. It's like a 0.1 or 0.01% addition. That's really important. And then also at the ending, you have transition stuff like this. That's very important. Like without that, it would not. It wouldn't work as the end of the song. Without it just would not work. And that's not even the last. That's just like a last 0.001%. And without those two last 0.001%, the song it was so. In this case, it would still be pretty good, but it would function way less, and the impact would be way less. It would just be a lot worse, in my opinion. So once again, it's not even just the last 5%. The last the last everything, every little detail, every little thing she does is magic. Every little thing matters. Now for the broad tips, I'll tell you what I usually have to do for my last 5%. And each of these things will definitely just have their own videos about them later on. But for now, it's just the things that I think about a lot. I think about energy transfer between sections, and that not just like the abstract feeling of energy, but you know how much high end is in the section, each section, how much mids, how much low mids, how much sub, making sure that the difference in spectral balance isn't too much, so that I can bridge the gap, and then doing very intricate things to bring in or bring out specific things and sort of smooth over the difference between the two things. That's a gigantic one for Fizz songs. That one is absolutely essential. And that goes hand in hand with the other main thing, which is just transitions. Transitions, I guess in most people's music probably aren't that important, but for Fizz, transitions are everything. I've put so much effort into transitions, it's not even funny, because without them, you just could not make the songs work. To be fair, there are times where we intentionally make something very, a very harsh cut, or like a very harsh like psh. But those are calculated things that are a part of the vision, whereas a lot of stuff is you have to make sections fit together in a way that makes them feel a part of the same song, even if there's nothing similar between them. Those two things are pretty Fizz-centric, but the thing that will help you the most, I bet, is like that last drop example, where you have all the elements, and they're mixed to a degree, but there's just, something, or sometimes a big something that's missing that makes it feel complete, and makes it gel, and makes it work, and makes it function. Because sometimes you just have a really great idea, and all the parts are great, all the parts sound good, but together something is just wrong, or it doesn't do what you want to. And that can be a very frustrating thing. But if you take a step back, maybe ask a friend for advice, or just, a server for feedback, Fizz server, and then listen and think critically about what needs to happen to make it work how you want. And then you approach that with the idea that I can do this. I can figure this out if I just try hard enough. And I believe in myself, and I just, really actually believe I can do it. And then most of the time, you will 100% at least get closer and add more tools to your toolbox, so that next time you can get even closer. And the next time you get even more closer, and you get even more closer, and then eventually you're literally Cohen sound. And that's the point of this video. Everyone wants to be Cohen sound, and I agree. Everyone should be Cohen sound. That's all.